Hey guys, it's Gracie, and I am back to read chapters 13 and 14 of Treasure Island. It was written by Robert Louis Stevenson, but it's been turned into a children's book. So let's get going. The Man of the Island. From the side of the hill, I heard a bit of gravel fall and rattle. I turned toward the sound and saw a shaggy, dark figure leap behind the trunk of a pine tree. It fitted like a deer from tree to tree, on two legs like a man, but stooping over as it ran, unlike any man I had ever seen. Remembering the pistol the captain had given me, I got a fresh surge of courage and walked toward him. He hesitated at first, and then took a step toward me. To my surprise, he fell to his knees and clasped both my hands. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm poor Ben Gunn," he said in a hoarse voice that sounded as if it hadn't been put to use in a long time. I haven't spoke to a soul in 3 years. I could see now that he had blue eyes and pleasing features. His skin was burned from the sun, and his clothing was so ragged that he looked worse than any beggar I had ever seen. 3 years? Were you shipwrecked?" I asked him. "No, mate. I was marooned." I knew this was a terrible punishment for buccaneers, in which they were left alone on a remote island with just a gun and a little powder. "What do you call yourself, mate?" he asked. "Jim," I replied. "Jim. Jim," he repeated. He started rambling on about how he survived and about his mother. Then he lowered his voice. "And Jim," he whispered in my ear, grabbing a hold of my arm, "I'm rich." By now, I figured the poor man had gone crazy from being alone, and I must have shown that on my face, for he repeated that he was rich, this time sounding angry. "Rich! Rich! I says I'm rich, and I'll make a rich man out of you, Jim." Then a shadow passed over his eyes, and he tightened his grip on my arm and waved his finger in my face. "Jim, you tell me the truth. This ain't Flint's ship, is it?" That's when it hit me that this man was on our side. "No, it's not Flint's ship. Flint is dead. But for some of his men are on board, and it's bad luck for the rest of us." "Not a man with one leg," he gasped. "Silver?" I asked. "He's the cook and the ringleader. If you was sent by Long John Silver, I'm as good as dead," he said. I told him the whole story from start to finish. When I was done, he patted me on the head and said, "You're a good lad, Jim. Just put your trust in Ben Gunn and I'll help you. I can find that treasure. And when I do, would your good squire be willing to give me £1,000 and my passage home?" I assured him that the squire would help him. Then he told me how he was on Flint's ship with Billy Bones and Silver when Flint found the treasure and buried it. Flint single-handedly killed the 6 men who helped him bury it. He said he came back 3 years ago with a different ship and crew. When they passed by the island, he told the crew about Flint's treasure and insisted they stop and look for it. But after 12 days, they still couldn't find it. The crew became angry with him and didn't believe the treasure was there at all. They jeered at him, throwing a musket and a shovel at him, left him there in disgust, and told him he could find old Flint's treasure for himself. "But we can't get back home until we can get back on board the ship," I said. "And how will we do that?" Well, I'll take you to the boat I made with my own 2 hands. I keep her under a white rock. Maybe we can try that after dark." Then a cannon shot rang out. "They've begun to fight," I cried. "Follow me." We began to run toward where the ship was anchored. Soon, not a quarter of a mile in front of me, I saw the British flag fluttering in the air above the trees. Chapter 14. The doctor's account of how the ship was abandoned. This chapter is told by Dr. Livesey. It was about 1:30 when the 2 boats went ashore from the Hispaniola. The captain, the squire, and I were taking matters over when Hunter came down with the news that Jim Hawkins had slipped into one of the 2 boats and had gone ashore with the rest. My heart sank. We didn't doubt Jim's goodness, but we were worried he was in danger. We decided that Hunter and I should go ashore in a small boat to get information. We followed the map and found the abandoned stockade. It was a stout, well-protected log fort, with a freshwater spring and a high fence. As soon as we got there, we heard a blood-curdling scream. My thought was, Jim Hawkins is gone. I made up my mind instantly, and we rode to the Hispaniola, where we found the squire and the captain, shaken and pale. I told the captain I had a plan, and between us, we figured out how to put it into action. We put old Tom Ridreth in the gallery between the cabin and the bow, with 3 or 4 loaded muskets. Hunter brought the boat round, and Joyce and I loaded her with gunpowder tins, muskets, biscuits, pork, and my medicine chest. On the deck were the squire, the captain, Israel Hands, and the crew. The squire and the captain held hands and the gun crew at gunpoint. Then the captain spoke. Mr. Hands, Squire Trelawney and I will shoot the first man who makes a move against us. The crew quickly went below deck, thinking they could take us from behind, but they found Ridreth waiting with his weapons. They cowered in wait and returned to their duties. By this time, we had the small boat loaded, and we made for shore again as fast as our oars could take us. Joyce stood guard at the stockade. Hunter and I made trip after trip from shore to shore until all the supplies we could carry were unloaded. On our last trip to the Hispaniola, we took 1 cutlass each and dropped all the remaining guns, swords, and powder into the sea. Then Ridreth came out of his place in the gallery and dropped into the boat, which we then brought round for the captain. The captain addressed the remaining men who were below deck. Now, men, said Captain Smollett, do you hear me? I'm talking to you, Abraham Gray. No reply. Gray, resumed the captain, I'm leaving this ship. I know you're a good man at heart. I give you 30 seconds to join me. There was a scuffle, a sound of blows, and out burst Abraham Gray with a knife cut on the side of the cheek. I'm with you, sir, said he. The next moment, he and the captain were in the boat, and we shoved off. Suddenly the captain spoke. Look, the cannon, he exclaimed. We had forgotten about the cannon on board. There were 5 pirates preparing it as we spoke. Our blood ran cold. Israel was Flint's gunner, said Gray in a hoarse voice. Who's the best shot here? Said the captain. Squire Trelawney, I said. Trelawney was as cool as steel. He loaded his gun and aimed at Israel Hands. His shot missed and hit another sailor. The sailor dropped and Israel paid no mind to his fallen mate. He just kept loading the cannon. I looked toward the shore and saw the other pirates coming out from the trees and tumbling into the boats. Here come the rowboats, sir, I said. Give way then, cried the captain. If we can't get ashore, all's lost. The squire fired another shot. At the same time, Hands shot at our boat. The cannonball whizzed past us, but the front part of the boat sank, leaving the captain and myself on our feet. No lives were lost, and we could wade ashore in safely. But half of our supplies were at the bottom of the sea, and we only had 2 working guns. Alrighty, see you next week for the rest of the book. Bye!